Hello everyone, and welcome to this video on cascading style sheets and style sheets in 3 different ways. So there's 3 ways we can use CSS code to style our web page. So we can add style to our HTML in a couple ways. Before I get started on that, I'm going to give you a quick overview of the project that I've created for this demo. So it is 3 pages, index.html, page2.html, and page3.html, and it has an images folder with a puppy image in it. Each page contains a title, a picture, some text, and 2 links to the other pages. The only difference between these pages is the title at the top indicates what page you're on, and at the bottom here we see that we have page numbers. So what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and get started on index.html, so our page 1, and we are going to add some styling. Now the first type of styling we're going to look at is called inline style. So inline style is when we put the style directly in line with the HTML code. So for example, if we wanted to change the background color of the title page 1, we could add a style and we would put our CSS directly in this line. So we could say background colon, whatever color we want our background color to be for the H1. So let's say black. And we could add color white so that we end up with a black background and a white text. So we run that and we get this styling. Note, no other things on our page are affected because it's inline. It only affects this one H1 tag. Other places that we often see this is on an image. We might do style width equals 50%. Run that. And what we're going to see is that image is quite a bit smaller. So this is inline styling. You can put as many CSS attributes and properties into a single style thing as you want. You will find that as you add things, say we wanted to add margin of 50 pixel, 50 pixel, 10 pixel, 10 pixel. What you're going to find is that very quickly your styling starts to get quite involved in your HTML tags, and your HTML becomes a little bit more confusing to read. So while if you want to change the properties of a single element on your website, so for example, you have a specific image you want to adjust, or a specific piece of text that you want to change, then of course you can do inline style. But if you are hoping to change the entire look of your page and create a theme, that's when we want to look at some of the other style type things that we have done. So for example, so this is inline style. We're going to move to embedded style. So inline style is all right here. Everything is inline in the HTML. Now if I add another heading, it's not going to have the styling because the styling is directly on this heading. So what we can do is if we want it to apply to multiple things, say we had another heading down here, and we wanted our CSS to apply to both, we could copy this whole style, run that, and that would work. But what we could also do is we could go up and use what's called embedded style. So you've used embedded style before, you just might not have known it was called embedded style. So embedded style is when we are creating the CSS rules on the same HTML page between style tags. So when we put it between the style tags and we're still working on the same page, that's called embedded style. So I could create an H1 rule and then put all of this code in there. And instead of having it in 2 places here, we delete that one and delete this one. Our page should look the same. And what we see is that now, by creating a single rule that applies to all H1 tags, in our embedded style, we can affect all of the things. So inline style, great if you're changing one specific thing. Embedded style, much better if you're changing multiple things on a page. The third type of styling that we're going to talk about is when we use what's a cascading style sheet. So when we use something like style.css or main.css, whatever you want to call it really, you can make multiple style sheets. And this is when we want to create a style. Usually if we have a lot of styling for a single page, we'll give it a CSS file. But it's especially helpful with multi-page websites when we want to apply a consistent theme or color scheme throughout. So if we want to have a similar layout on all of our pages, then we would usually use a cascading style sheet. So if we go to index.html, we're going to go ahead, we're going to move this h1 into our style.css file. We're going to go to index, and we're going to delete it from here. We're going to get rid of the embedded style. I'm just running it to show you that that styling is no longer on the H1. And then what we're going to do is we're going to need to link this style sheet and import it into our HTML. So how we do that is we use the link keyword, href for the reference, so the HTML reference that we're going to use. And the HTML reference is going to be the name of the file we're linking to or the path to that file. Then we want to make sure that we are doing, sorry, just have to move that out of the way. Okay, then we're going to use rel equals style sheet and type equals text file slash CSS, because it's a text CSS file. Now, I'm just going to make this a little bit better. Okay, so this value might change because of the name of your CSS file. So if you rename your CSS file, then you would have to change this here. But the link, the href, and all of this always stays exactly the same. And if you're building on Repellent, it actually auto adds this for you. Okay, so now we have this link to our style sheet, and we're going to go ahead and on page 2 and on page 3, we're going to add that link to our style sheet, because remember this page 2 and 3 didn't have the styling before. The other thing I'm going to do is just run it, and now you can see that heading styling is back on page 1, and it's on page 2, and it's on page 3. Now remember the image styling we did inline, so it is only on page 1. So if we want to move that to our CSS file, we're going to go to style.css, we're going to create a rule for images, and on that rule we're going to put our width 50%. And then what we'll find when we run this is that it applies to the first page, which it applies twice because it's an inline and in the cascading style sheet. It also applies to the other 2 pages. So this is one of the big perks. The 2 kind of major things that you're going to find extremely helpful about putting your styling in an external file is 1, that you can apply it to many different pages really easily, and 2, then your HTML file only has the HTML in it, and it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to read your code without having to like scroll through all your CSS. And that's a quick look at the 3 different types of style sheets that we saw. So we had our inline style that went directly in the HTML tag, our embedded style that used the style tags in the head, and then our external style sheets where we put our style in a separate file and linked it to our page.